Okay. Yeah. Okay. So welcome everyone. It is a bit, it's a bit of a marathon here at the Spanish Pavilion today. So excuse us while we kind of get further organized, but we just had one event literally finish about 2 minutes ago. So we're just kind of getting ourselves together. Luckily, we have a fantastic panel with us and very committed because it is 6 o'clock here and they've all been here probably since really early, attending tons of events and side events and pavilions and official COP activities. So it shows that we are committed to climate, to fighting climate change. So with that, I think the first thing I'm going to do, I'm going to give a little bit of a kind of framing of why we're here and just a brief introduction to the missions. And particularly, I hope for people that are probably, hopefully listening also outside the European Union. So the idea of the missions is, is this concept that, we are really facing completely, really challenging and complex problems. And therefore, we have to find new ways of addressing these complex, challenging problems. And the European Union, around 2019 came up with this idea, building on, Matsukatos' concept of the mission, that was really building on what happened, for example, when we tried to land on the moon. It basically meant that, there had to be lots of cross-sectoral collaboration with one focus, to get to the moon. And what the European Union did is they identified 5 areas where they thought that we needed this kind of thinking and this kind of action. So we had, on the one hand, cancer, we had oceans, we had soils, we had cities, and we had adaptation. And what we hear, and then just about 5 minutes ago, I found out that I actually have 3 missions with me, not just 2, because we also have someone from the mission Oceans, which is Pier Paolo. And you also on soil, brilliant. So we're only missing cancer, but I'm sure that we can kind of cover up for them. Okay, so basically what I'm going to do now, the logic of this event is really to create this kind of, I think I was just discussing briefly with the panelists before we started. What I want to really reflect in is this mission thinking and this mission doing, what is it different about what we're doing in the mission that merits that we continue along this line. And I also want to stress, for those of you that don't know, that the missions have a span of 10 years, right? So we're literally at the beginning of the missions, and these are systemic changes, as we will, I'm sure, hear from Kirsten Dunlop in a moment, that even if we go fast, they still take time. So that's why we need to kind of keep, keep, in a way, our faith in these deep transformational changes. So with that, I'm going to very briefly introduce our panelists, so that then we can get going. So first, I have Kirsten Dunlop, CEO for climate change, who basically, and I don't know if you want to, basically Climate Kick is incredibly engaged in all the missions. They actually are the coordinators of net zero cities, and they're also involved in Mission Soul, so I think maybe Kirsten could enlighten us on that. And I also know that they're also, also coordinators of one of the major kind of mission projects, Pathways to Resilience, where they're basically developing these kind of pathways, to adapt regions across the European Union. Next to Kirsten, we have Alejandro Garcia. He was just telling us before that he brings his councillor in the city of Valladolid. He has now been working as a councillor for a year and a half, but he had a previous life before being a councillor. And I think he brings really useful experience because he was actually really engaged with SMEs in his city. So he really understands what SMEs and commerce needs. And that's a really interesting take, because if we think about it, we're now entering a new cycle in the European Commission. Basically we heard from Mr. Draghi that we have to think about competitiveness. But if we hear about competitiveness, 99% of our economy are SMEs. So I'm pretty sure that, Mr. Alejandro Garcia will have a lot to say to us about how do you engage that sector so they are missionaries, together with us. And I know that the other thing I want to add is that Valladolid is one of the few cities that actually he has 2 hats. He is mission cities and he's also mission adaptation. And we know, because we've been engaging with him, you know, as a catalyst, giving the technical assistance in the mission, that they are very advanced people in the room. You know, they really are deeply committed to both missions. And I think what is particularly interesting from Valladolid, and I think this is what's going to be coming in the next IPCC 7 cities report, is the idea of integrating now mitigation and adaptation. Next, we have Noelia, a researcher is the one deeper south in the panel, because she comes from the Canary Islands. And she is a civil engineer and an agricultural engineer. And she works in the La Laguna University in Tenerife. And the reason why she's here with us is, apart from, I know that yesterday she was actually participating in the water pavilion on how we decarbonize the water sector. So very, very, very pertinent experience that she brings, you know, to, for example, for water. But also she's also leading a case study in Natalie, which is a mission project, because one of the nice things about the missions is that apart from the fact that we have cities and regions, we also have large research projects engaged directly in the mission. And she represents one of the largest EU mission projects that is really trying to understand that nature is critical when we're trying to adapt and we're trying to mitigate, and also for seas and for soils and possibly even for cancer, I would say, you know, these systemic approaches. So the project that she will present in a moment is really trying to understand what does ecosystem-based adaptation mean, and she will explain in a moment, you know, from a number of case studies in the Canary Islands. Then we are very privileged to have Pier Paolo Campostrini from the Corilla Consortium. Well, I think, and just now we found out that he's also JPI Oceans, and he's also very involved in the mission on oceans. But mainly the reason why he's also here is, you know, he's from the Veneto region. And needless to say, of course, you know, if anyone thinks of adaptation and challenges to adaptation, you can imagine the Veneto region, you know, is definitely at the forefront. You know, sea level rise, you name it, you know, they will have to be facing. And I know from talking to a colleague of his, Francesco Musco, that one of the things that I think is particularly important in what they're doing is that they have managed to pull also on the private sector very deeply, you know, to engage in this process of changing a region that is very vulnerable but very engaged. And then finally, we have Risto, you know, who comes from the city of Turku, and he's the climate director. And he was just telling, you know, us that, and I think your mayor is also here, so it shows like a lot of commitment from your city. And then we were just hearing before that he mainly works on mitigation himself, but his department actually would do mitigation adaptation. You work actually with your region, which is a kind of adaptation signatory, a charter to the mission. So with that, I think the introductions are kind of made. I'm sure that they could, you know, we could add lots of things, you know, to what they've done in their lives, but because we don't have that much time, I think I'll start on this side of the panel. And I think the first question that I had is to all of you, is what is different about a mission? Why does it matter that in a way we keep the pace, you know, and we keep going deeper into this mission thinking? And with that, I think if you just kind of give us a few ideas from your experience about, in your case, why did this mission bring some new thinking and new doing in the case of, you know, in your individual cases, because that's the value, that we have different perspectives here.
Starting with me. Thank you very much, and hello everyone. Good evening in Bakú, and good afternoon in Europe. I think, so speaking from the perspective of the organization that is involved and has been involved in climate innovation for 15 years now as a member of the EIT community, the Climate Kick, there is a material difference in the way in which the missions open up a space for action. That is made up of many elements. First and foremost is the level of ambition that the missions describe, because the ambition of setting a date of 2030 for very large-scale whole place and systems transformation, which is actually 1.5 degree aligned, no matter how we regret and worry about the fact that we are already past 1.5 degrees in terms of global warming. 1.5 degrees is not a target, it's a threshold of livability. So everything that we can do to pull back the overshoot and to create, above all, demonstrations of the possibility of mobilizing action at scale, at multiple levels, with that level of ambition are absolutely essential, because they create the learning that we need for how to do this, and they build the hope of the possibility, and they create a precedent, which in the context of policy and finance really, really matters. So first things first, it is really the fact that this is a level of ambition that is actually where it needs to be for Europe to be on track to fulfill its climate policies, and above all its commitments to creating a continent that is safe, resilient and thriving and prosperous for its citizens, with principles of justice and distribution right throughout. The second element is the fact that this is about Europe reaching beyond its reaching beyond the strict principle of subsidiarity to fully empower cities and regions to act. And we know that subnational action is really where action is happening, because it's where climate change is most real, most felt, and most visible and meaningful. Both meaningful in terms of its risks, we know exactly what has just been happening in Valencia, but also meaningful in terms of its possibilities and its benefits to citizens. So this is a context where in all five, well, it's certainly in 4 of the 5 missions, you have the opportunity to ground action in contexts where for individuals involved at all levels, whether it's policymakers, farmers, communities and citizens, there is a direct connection with a context that is meaningful and in which people care about how those actions evolve. And that is a very, very important and unprecedented initiative on behalf of the Commission. I'm used to working with Commission funding that is located with projects. You run a project, your program, you involve a number of actors, the project or the program finishes, and often that's where the initiative ends. This is sustained, multi-year, bold commitments to outcomes, creating a space into which the level of ambition of action can continue to rise and build on the commitments of those involved. And the last element I would add is this is a very, in the case of the cities mission in particular and the climate adaptation mission, there is an extremely structured approach associated with this. There are contracts involved, the Climate City contracts. There is a structured investment plan. There are climate action plans that are pulling out exactly what are the emissions baselines that need to be addressed. Increasingly, we are reaching to put together the cities and the regional adaptation missions so that we can bring together these mechanisms. And that creates directional signal for finance. It creates a clear sense of this is what's happening and it's going in this direction. It creates the possibility of building investor confidence. And above all, it creates the kind of aggregate information about the demand that cities and regions and large-scale areas of Europe can create by moving forward together at scale. And that kind of demand is exactly what the economy is waiting for. Large industry, small and medium enterprises, this is really the opportunities and the ingredients to create lead markets for Europe in industrial decarbonization, reindustrialization that is sustainable, that is resilient, that is prosperous. And it means that there is a trigger here in learning from some of the best practices of COVID in terms of effective multi-level governance and investing that in the way in which we empower industry, business and finance to come together at the table with cities and regions and start to put together effectively an industrial plan for Europe, not on paper, but on the ground. And this, for me, is revolutionary. It's one of the boldest climate action initiatives in the world. It really needs to be backed because there is a piece here that we must not forget, and that is the public imagination. These are the opportunities to really flip the script around the idea that the Green Deal is somehow an abstract Brussels idea and ground it in the reality of good for jobs, good for business, good for opportunities, better well-being, cleaner air, more affordable energy, more resilient possibilities of thriving in the next decades rather than being afraid and uncertain.
Yeah, I was saying that. Now it's difficult to speak after her. Okay, thank you, Elena, again, for let us being here with such a good group of people talking about the missions. And thank you, Kristen, for this complete, I don't know how to say, but you explain everything in few words and very clear. I think for those that didn't know what was all this project, you made a good resume, and you should take this video and send it everywhere so everyone can learn very fast. Okay, so we are on that part of the job, grounded. So we are now on the ground. We made all the abstract work before in our city, and we are proud of being here and explain a little bit our work. We are trying to change our city, but our city not for a politician, our city for the citizens. So that's what we were speaking before. This is not a question of, and I told this evening also that it's not a question of colors, of politics. This is a question of real life, make a better city in this case, make a better world. And we are working on that. We have many projects. We are on the mitigation. We are very advanced, and now we are starting with the adaptation. In the adaptation that we will be working essentially in our river. Our river Pisuerga is crossing the city from side to side, and we've been living back to the river all these years. So we decided that will be the point to start to change our city. Also, we have projects of renaturalization with Fundación Biodiversidad, and we are trying to get back all areas that were full of garbage, and we are cleaning, planting new trees, and make them more green for the people. Also working in the city with these climate refugios. Sometimes I forget the word, sorry. For also this extreme temperature during summertime in our city. So little things that will make a better life for our neighbors. And I think that's the end of all this. The people will be healthier, the companies will be more competitive also. So those are all the benefits we can reach. It's not only a question of climate, it's a question of life, our future, and the future of our sons and families.
Good afternoon, thank you also. Well, I will talk about Natalie project, which is a mission adaptation project, and it's located in the one of the case studies is the Canary Islands, and which is nice is we have as a follower Balearic Islands. So we try first of all to work together, both archipelagos in Spain, especially when it comes to groundwater. What is an issue? I mean, it is a resource, but also an issue because of tourism in both archipelagos. So Natalie is about nature-based solutions, which is very nice. It is the first time we're doing nature-based solutions in the Canary Islands. So that's one of the good things about these European fundings for us. It allows us to do things for the first time, and then we can create that, and then the SMEs, they can come and finish our work that started from the academia, which is very nice. And regarding nature-based solutions, we have 3 sites. We are working in Tenerife, Gran Canaria, and Fuerteventura, and we are doing different things. In Maspalomas, in Gran Canaria, we are working in the Maspalomas Pond, which is a very touristic place and a place very rich in biodiversity. And this project, which is nice because it makes you to work with the citizens and co-governance, is that allow people that live there to reconnect with this place, which is more touristic now. So citizens that live in the area can reconnect, trying to protect this area, which is very, very nice. And in Tenerife, we are trying to do a wetland, an urban wetland, because we have our phreatic level very close to the surface, and we can have groundwater flooding and also surface flooding. So we want to prevent the city to be flooded if an event happens. And also in Fuerteventura, which is the island that is closer to Sahara Desert, and it's the most desertical one, we are trying to recover the gavias, which is a natural way of agriculture there. It's common with other places that are very desertic too. And through these places called gabias, we want to also regenerate our aquifer there. So very ambitious. We have 5 years to work on it, and for the moment it's been great. Some results. So yeah, we will tell you more later.
Thank you for the invitation. The point is that the first speaker told almost everything, but I would like just to underline something that, from my perspective, what has been told. I come from Venice, which is a very complicated place. We do have a laguna, but we succeed in having a laguna only because 5 centuries ago there was an intervention in order to avoid the siltation of the lagoon. So the laguna are ephemeral from a geological point of view, or they become land, as it would have been the case in Venice, or as it was, or they becoming a bay, a marine bay. So in our case, we wanted to have a laguna around because we had the city in the building. We built a city in a lagoon, which is not, I mean, it's such a strange idea. But we did it, and so we have to maintain, and this is complex and difficult. The missions are important for the reason that was underlined, the perception of the people. We are living in a world where the fake news are taking place. There are people which believe that the land is flat. The land is flat. No, sorry, it's not. So there are some uncertainties in the scientific knowledge, but there are also some things that which are sure about. And we should be able to enter, to explain this in a proper way. So there is a lot of knowledge, a lot of scientific knowledge about how the planet is living, how the system is working. We should, in a world where, for some reasons, these fake news have a floor they expand, and with the terrible consequences on the political side, on the social side. The Novax, something, I mean, incredible for a scientist, no? So this kind of, we think that we need to speak not for only what we are researching, but what we would like to achieve. And the mission is exactly that. So we explain to the people, to the society which pay the taxes and fund our project, by the way. That is for a purpose, and this purpose is underlying the mission. Of course, these missions are, in some sense, are interlaced, because they are interlaced in. By the way, I'm quite. I don't know why in the European Commission stand the word Green Deal is not told. Maybe I don't know. But the Green Deal is something important that we are trying to achieve in a different way. There are different missions which are influenced by this Green Deal, because it's a deal. I mean, something you can win or you can lose when you put a deal. There is something there is a risk in losing it, and so the idea of the mission is not to lose. Now, is looking towards the possibility of winning the challenge. And this perception should be sent even better. Not always the missions really in the truly life are able to do this. But I think that the idea of connection between the different projects is a good one. In my last 20 years of life, I think I did at least 40 European projects. Some of them I was coordinator of, but the results of the project, some of them, the other in some sense were dispersed. I'm not saying, and all of them reached the result, reached the target. There was no failure in the objective, no failure also in the financial statement, which are complex. I mean, good use of European money, but the results where they are. So the idea of the mission is to collect these results, address them since the beginning, towards a single target. So also in our project, which was belonging to the water mission, just to mention it very briefly, I will not explain too much, but the name, the title of the project is explaining also the target. The title was MSP Green, just ended 1 month ago. MSP means Maritime Spatial Planning, taking care of the Green Deal. So the use of the sea, the Maritime Spatial Planning is looking at the multi-use of the sea with the ecosystem approach, so maintaining both the economy and the nature, in a nutshell, very nutshell. However, and the Green Deal was added to the directive afterwards. The directive on maritime spatial planning is 2014. The Green Deal came out many years later. And how to combine this, because there is a problem of legislation, there is a problem of policies, there is the need to cope with the national and sometimes regional or municipal policies. No? And so the idea of the mission is to address all this effort towards a clear direction, to be communicated to the people, because the perception of the people, and unfortunately, no, we are lucky in Europe to stay inside the democracy, but we are looking at the number of voters is decreasing almost everywhere, no? And so we need to explain better why these institutions are important. Otherwise, the people do not care. No? And I mean, I think that in this complex society, everybody should do his own work. The science work is to provide knowledge. The policy people are to provide solution to implement them in strategies, but altogether I think we have to share the same target. The idea of the mission, which has been elaborated with a hearing and considering a number of experts which worked for some years in order to define the strategy, the agenda, the main elements, and there is a process which is continuing thanks to the result of the different projects which participated to this activity, but also establishing a network of people at the end. And this kind of networks, plural, is very important for achieving, for telling the society the perception that things there are global changes, but there are also global answers that we can give in order to adapt, to mitigate the extreme, and to manage what we can manage through the adaptation. And no clapping. No, it's not necessary.
Thank you. I think a lot has already been said, but I will try to add something from the perspective of the city of Turku in Finland. We are the oldest city in Finland. In 2029 will be 800 years old, but I understand and respect that in Spanish terms or Italian terms we are not very old, we are quite young, but still. We have worked on sustainable development since the 1990s. And we have worked on a council level adopted binding climate program since 2009. So we did not really start our climate work or our climate goals with the city's climate mission. And actually, when we entered the mission, we had already reduced our emissions by more than 50% from the level of 1990. So we had some considerations that what added value would joining the mission mean for our work and for our city. And following an analysis, discussions, debate, we then decided to apply for the mission and we got in. And we were looking for some new impetus, some new thinking, new system, new boost to our work. And we actually found that in the way how the mission encourages and increases cooperation when we use it in a smart way, I would say. So the structure with the climate city contract, with the action plan and with the investment plan and with the commitments where you actually can involve and invite your local partners was something that we really have made a good use of. At the moment, we have 38 partners, and we will have 50 partners by Christmas or January, and they include all the most important local companies. They include our universities, they include infrastructure companies, they include main NGOs, they include partners from the welfare area, like a state administration. We have congregations, we have church, we have basically everything that is important in the economy or people's daily lives in Turku. We have even the leading arts and culture institutions as members. So it's really a broad partnership, and we have already discovered how we can help each other and how we can have synergy. For instance, the first carbon neutral large-scale ships will most likely be built at the Meyer shipyard in Turku during the coming years. And this would not be possible if our energy company were not able to provide carbon neutral renewable heat and electricity to the shipyard. Just to give you one example, or how can art and culture, the theaters, how can they communicate to people? They're actually doing carbon neutral film productions in Turku already. So it's a very manifold partnership, and it's very inspiring. And these initiatives actually support each other. And if I add just one thing about the investment plan, that is something where we have combined timely regulation actually with the mission partnership and with our investment plan, as we have during this council term, during the last 4 years, we've been developing the climate and sustainability budgeting at the city. And during last 3 years, we focused on the investments. So all investments of the city and city subsidiary companies, we are applying the European Union's taxonomy of sustainable financing to all investments that are above the value of 1 million euros. So we have a framework where we can check all our main investments against mitigation criteria, adaptation criteria, biodiversity criteria, circular economy criteria, waters and sea criteria, and pollution of the environment criteria. And I would like to add that the mission is also inspiring to citizens, but I'll not say more about that as we need a second round. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Yeah, no, I think, before we go into the second round, it's like a boxing, but this is positive boxing. I think I just want to say, just put the framing. As I said, we are entering the new policy cycle. And I have to say that we're at COP, we had good news in the latest report from the European Commission. Emissions down 8%, yeah? So we gradually, in a way, we are doing our homework. And of course, we now, in the next policy cycle, we will have to think of the 2040 target. At the moment, what is being discussed is an even more ambitious target for the European Union, as you know, of at least 90%, which will have to be agreed by the next Commission, and where we hope that member states, in a way, are ambitious and stay the course on the Green Deal, because we are seeing the impacts from climate change. I mean, I'm in Spain. I don't have to say what we've been witnessing, over the last few weeks, and I think it makes it even more, urgent that we act. And I think in this context, of course, the European Union, by COP 30, we will have to have a new NDC, that will be presented. And there, I think, again, the missions, the beneficiaries of the missions, is the cities and the regions. They're the implementers. They're the ones that can help us achieve that target. And I think that's why it's so pertinent. So on this context, and this context of Europe, which is, I think a unique experiment since the Second World War on multi-level governance, I think what I would want to ask you is, how can the mission help enhance ambition? How can the mission help us now that the geopolitical winds are changing? How can it help us stay the course on the commitments we've already made that are citizens, not the ones that believe on the world being flat. The average citizen that is informed and has critical thinking and that expects politicians, some of you are politicians, some of you are technical, but we expect that, because it affects, as you said, our health, our welfare, our long-term, even, I would actually, our security is also, part of this. So, Kirsten, and I'm sure that it'd be great because I know you're going to lift the mood, so.
Well, and let me also not steal everybody else's thunder. I don't want to do that. I think, let me pull out one particular example that is in the European context at the moment very topical, which is this question of Europe's anxiety about its competitiveness and its ability to build and retain talent, to compete in a context of geopolitical dynamics that are becoming more and more difficult, and where indeed democracy, and the roots of democracy, direct democracy, democratic participation is really being challenged. I'm going to take one example of the mission on cities, but this also applies to the others. If you add up and the cities, just for some context, there are 112 cities. It's 12% of Europe's population. When you add up what these cities need in terms of green cement, green glass, green plastics, green logistics, green first and last mile logistics, how they are able to think about nature-based solutions, water, waste, you have an industrial plan for Europe that is extraordinary in terms of its opportunities on new skills and talent, jobs, growth, the chance to create the accelerated learning environments for supply chains, not only in cities where we have indeed, as you said, 99% of Europe's economy is SMEs, so the industrial ecosystems of big companies working in supply chains that go right into the texture of the city itself, but also the relationship across Europe's bioregions and across Europe's corridors. You have the opportunity to create really green corridors, ecological shipping that goes all the way from Finland right through the entire European continent and can then be shipping over across to, well, let's not choose California at the moment, but maybe California, yes, and on to Singapore and so on. You have opportunities to create industrial ecosystems that are extremely positive and that turn the big initiatives like the carbon border adjustment mechanism or the nature deforestation laws into enormously positive opportunities, directional opportunities for the way in which we construct an economy of the future. Not only that, but they also construct places in which we can experiment with one of the most important priorities we have as a resource-poor continent, which is how to reduce the material demand, the demand on raw materials and resources and materials, and the material throughput as we decarbonize, because we don't have access to the metals and the minerals and the raw materials we need really at the scale we would need. When you look at the aggregate and demand for the European mission on cities, just this small sample of the whole of Europe's perimeter, you will already begin to see this is going to be a problem. So this creates a massive forcing function, innovation challenge, if you like, for thinking about urban mining, for really aggressive and advanced circularity, for creating new supply chains and value chains, for really bringing in nature, nature-based solutions in the way we think about materials, the rewilding, the requalification of cities. All of that, if you think about young people growing up now, people in responsible roles in businesses, this is an opportunity to skill and to create talent and experience in both the leadership opportunity, in the business model development, in the individual engagement with everyday lives of citizens, that creates extraordinary competitiveness, actually, globally. This is really the learning experience that we need, the training data for artificial intelligence and digital twins, and the kind of adventure journey that we're going to need to go on as citizens, because we're not going to, in our lifetimes, see and witness an extraordinarily peaceful, sustainable, resilient society. But we are going to be the generation that makes it possible for our children to realize that. And this context, for me, is really where you start to see why does it make such a big difference to enhance ambition? How do you get these feedback loops of everyday up to policy making and the reinforcement of policy coherence in Europe to enable the Green Deal to be a positive tipping point and a framework for positive tipping points, not just negative climate tipping points.
She did it once again. Okay, I think the same. So for a medium-sized city like us, it's a big opportunity and also the opportunity of being an example for bigger cities or smaller cities. So that's the point. And the citizen or the neighbor, they have to see, okay, you can, even the negation is, okay, this is a question of, okay, you want to live in a better city, we are make the things easier, we are going to have a better, better, it's not, no, better air quality. So if you offer to people better things for living, do you think they are going to say no because of your ideal or your way of thinking? I think this is a question of be grounded, as you said before, and we have to take this as a part of a bigger project. So we are a sandbox. We are getting ready this digital twin for the city. So we are working on all those projects that can help in the future to others. And we are open to share all our experience with other cities or future cities that want the same. The opportunity of being here with people from different countries also helps to exchange ideas. We've been speaking during this day that is not from zero. Okay, which is not all the cities, they have to start from zero. So you have to go in another place, see what they are doing, and start from that point, because you are getting 2, 3, 4, 5 years of work that are already made. So that's the question. So this is a work, an effort we are doing now with 112 cities, but it's for the rest of the cities. So we have to be generous. That's another word, being generous. And share your politics, share your ideas, share your work, exchange with teams. So I think it's a good idea that the people, they move from your comfort, go in another place, see what are the problems they have, and try to help them to start working and move the box. So I think that's a big I don't know how to say, we have to be committed and work all together. And this kind of work, I think, should be shared better and should be known by others, because I think also knowledge is important, and many people, they don't know. That's why I said that your first speech was perfect, to have this short message in a few minutes. So share with everyone, and I'm sure many more cities will join this mission and will have a better era in 2050, because it's not 2030, it's 2050, but for us is the commitment with this earlier date.
In our case, we've been in another project.
Oh, it's only me. The public should do something, otherwise.
Well, in other projects we've been involved, it's more about monitoring, creating documents, also governance. But now with this mission, we are trying to do a physical impact in the place. We are trying to build a pilot. So the thing we are facing is, it is complicated, or let's say we are faster than the administration. So we are bringing something new to the region, which is good. And the SMEs will be very ready to, evolve that if it works. The thing is, for the administration, it can be complicated they didn't expect the project, right? Because we can involve them somehow, but not all of them know Natalie project is running in the Canary Islands. So let's say we want to do something in the Maspalomas Pond. It is a natural protected area. So trying to work there in the area, it requires a lot of permits. We have to talk to many people, It's complicated that they see the importance to do things agile, because we just have 5 years. Usually the first year is, to try to put all people together. Sometimes it's not very, you cannot work as fast the first year as you can work later. So I don't know how, but maybe the administration, they should be prepare for these fundings, because they are great opportunities, but you spend a lot of time explaining the project, trying to involve them, trying them to, support you, to give you the permits. And I know it's complicated. It has to be, because you are working in a natural protected area. It doesn't have to be easy, but somehow we don't have that much time. So we need to, do things more agile. That's what I'm observing in Natalie. That's our main issue. So that's very cool to see, politicians here. They are convinced, they are there, they are implementing it. It makes things easier to get more funding because they are involved. But when the academia starts, it can be, more complicated. So yeah, that's our main, goal now. Try to involve the administration in, being faster.
Yes, I believe that we need to be optimistic, but we cannot be too naive. Okay, missions are not in the newspaper, Italian newspaper. Never. Okay, so there is a lack of communication. Most probably, most of the people does not know what mission are. However, we have a lot of missionaries. We are working on people. These people, even if they are not the majority, even if they are, but they are, I'm not saying that they are the best part, but they are an important part of the new society which is going to be born. They will become maybe leaders, political, on the science, in the professions. And this will be a tool for changing in the future, changing fast, because as we said yesterday or the day before yesterday here, we do not have so much time in front of us, because the rate of changing is the sea level rise. I spoke about sea level rise when I was here. The sea level is rising quickly, and this is putting a lot of cities under pressure. All the Mediterranean coast will be affected by sea level rise, and we have millions of people living on the coast. So there will be really. So we need to have our awareness in profession, in science, in politics should be at least should grow at the same rate, and we need for that really to have a different approach. So the missions are important because there are missionaries, because we are convincing young people, young generation. I have not only children, but I have also grandchildren now. And today is the birthday of my first grandchildren, which is 4 years, auguri. But they will be the next generation that will suffer or participate in a new deal, in a new perspective. I believe that this is the core of our the education, the scientific research, the sharing of experiences. So the European project allow us to travel. Not all the people, but the generation, the Erasmus generation is different. I never did the Erasmus. It was not current when I was a student. My sons did. And we went through the European project. I went to Turku.
Welcome.
Well, it was a nice city. I stayed in a hotel which was a prison before. But because things are changing, so what I'm saying, and your colleague came to Venice, so I mean,
it was transformed.
It was transformed. I was not put in jail, but it's a nice one, huh? But I mean, this is the new Europe that we are building together. And I believe that under this perspective, we may be optimistic, even if not to be too much naive, because most of the people does not know what we are doing. They do not believe. There are still other kind of pressures which we should consider. So there is not exactly that we are running in the same direction today. Also on the political level, let's see what the new Commission will do, whether they will support this mission or they will change where and how. I mean, we should be aware that it is challenging, and there is a deal that we can win or we can lose it. We hope to win it. You have.
The title of the session says mission thinking, and I think it is important that we also look at these missions from the perspective of thinking and of understanding. And we've been, one particular topic of work in Turku has been the climate anxiety, and working with the psychology researchers and department actually in the mission project to learn more about human perception and behavior with regards to sustainable ways of living. And our outspoken goal is to be a 1.5 degree city, which enables a 1.5 degree sustainable living to our inhabitants in their daily lives. And I think that is quite important, that you root the mission also in daily life. And when we look at the realities and the thinking, attitudes, future wishes, threats, missions, motivations of young people, I think it is extremely important that Europe has these longer-term goals, and that our these EU missions are steps forward, and there will be more steps, and there are possibilities for meaningful studying, for meaningful work, meaningful engagement in activism, in civic society, to actually make a good future. That is something that is so important for not only for young people, but especially to young people who are looking forward to their lives and who are actually developing, building their lives. And that kind of hope we want to give as a city. And I think that on European level is really the mission of the missions. That is the thinking of the missions. And even if the missions as EU missions are not so much visible in media or anywhere, I think the topics are quite much visible. And as media operates mainly on bad news, basically, it's important that we make the good news and we make the good messages, and we can best do it together. So it's been really a pleasure to be in the panel with all of you and with all of you. Thank you.
Okay, so I think to end this fantastic panel, and I think we all go with kind of like real positive thinking, you know, about, you know, this mission thinking. I just wanted to kind of give an example we had yesterday, you know, for example, like the city of Valladolid has mobilized the whole football club, you know, to really get to the citizens, right? And I think this is really important. And also, I mean, just to say that in the context of the mission, you know, a manual has been prepared on basically to kind of give all these tools and techniques, you know, about how citizen regions can engage their citizens with assemblies, you know, with participatory budgeting. There's so many tools we have now to really make everyone part of the mission, because we know that that's what possibly at one point put the Green Deal at risk. You know, people did not understand. So we have to be missionaries to understand, you know, for people can, but they can engage, you know, they have to participate, yeah? So on that basis, I think we have a fantastic video we want to show you. It's like a cinema now, because we're talking about engaging people. Okay, so basically we want to show you the video about the City S, which is the platform of the 7 mission cities that are here, you know, they're really well known in Spain because they are really, you know, trailblazers, you know, I think in Europe, together particularly, for example, with the sister partners in Sweden, you know, they've made all these links, you know, viable cities, another very important platform. So we want to project you this video so that you can actually see, you know, how the cities are really trying to make, you know, trail-based. And I also want to say that the regions kind of embracing them and making sure that this can be scaled, you know, and that we do mitigation, adaptation, we take care of our soils, we take care of our oceans and water, and of course, you know, even with chemicals going into the cancer. So these missions have a logic to them, particularly for the citizens of the European Union, and possibly to other regions in the world. So with that, we'll leave you with this amazing video.
Bienvenidos, benvinguts, ongi etorri, benvidos. Somos CTS 2030, una plataforma diseñada para construir los espacios que necesitamos para alcanzar una transformación urbana sin precedentes. Este camino empezó hace más de 4 años y hoy queremos hacer contigo un viaje al pasado, donde sembramos las semillas de la transformación. Desde la firma del primer acuerdo climático hasta la financiación del primer proyecto piloto, cada paso ha sido un logro, cada desafío una oportunidad. Miramos hacia atrás con gratitud por lo que hemos logrado juntos, cada reunión, cada taller, cada curso de verano, cada barrera superada, cada meta alcanzada nos ha llevado hasta este momento. Pero hoy no es solo el pasado, es sobre todo mirar hacia adelante, hacia un futuro que aún no está escrito. Es sobre construir juntos el mañana que queremos. La hoja de ruta que nos permitirá avanzar en la implementación de la Misión Europea de Ciudades. Nos apoyamos en los cimientos que hemos construido, en la creación de comunidad, en las relaciones interpersonales, en el desarrollo de capacidades, en la involucración de la ciudadanía y el sector privado, en el diseño de proyectos multiciudad. Pero ahora es el momento de elevarnos más alto, de alcanzar nuevos horizontes. Llegó el momento de la acción. Hoy nos reunimos, no solo para celebrar nuestros logros, sino para redoblar nuestro compromiso, para trabajar juntos en la construcción de un futuro donde nuestras ciudades sean modelo de inclusión, oportunidad, calidad de vida y sostenibilidad. Que este momento marque el comienzo de una nueva fase en nuestro viaje. Un viaje hacia un futuro mejor, donde cada paso que damos nos acerca más a nuestra visión compartida. Gracias, gracias, eskerrik asko, gracias a cada uno de vosotros por ser parte de este viaje. Juntos estamos creando un legado que perdurará por generaciones. Bienvenidos al futuro de la Misión Europea de Ciudades en España.